that it's not that, it's that they're speaking up because of things having been called the N-word or having seen pictures or stuff drawn that was very inappropriate. And so when you address those want to be skirted over and stated as if it's not. But but that was basically the behavior that was recurring over and over again. So I pulled them out. And my daughter graduated the spring of 2018. I pulled him out the fall of 2018.
And what's your name?
My name is A.J. Perkins. Mm-hmm. A.J. period J period Perkins, Perkins. Thank you.
Okay. Some of the parents want to know when is this going to air?
5 o'clock?
4, 5, 4, 5, 6. I got 13, 2.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to News Now from Fox. I'm your host, Pilar Arias, for the next hour and a half. I hope you all are having a great day, great start to your week so far. I'm going to say hello here really quickly, and then we're going to get to some weather news that's particularly impacting us here in Florida. So again, hello, my name is Pilar Arias. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you had a fabulous weekend. If you're watching us on the platform that has a chat feature, feel free to let me know what you did over the weekend. There were lots of celebrations as Biden was declared the victor, the president-elect, and he's going to be inaugurated in January. We heard from Biden himself and Kamala Harris on Saturday night. It was a big celebration in Delaware, and we're going to be getting up to speed with that in just a few moments. But again, we're talking Tropical Storm Eta. Here's a live picture right now. This is actually courtesy of Fox 35 right here in Orlando. This is Port Canaveral, just to kind of show you the conditions. It has been raining off and on here in Orlando over the weekend and into the morning as well. So the situation here, the very latest that we're getting right now, is we're kind of just monitoring where Eta will make landfall. So that is definitely what we're keeping an eye on. It's located just off the coast of southwest Florida, expected to soon re-strengthen into a hurricane. Eta hit land late yesterday on lower Matacumbe Key, Florida. The system's slow speed and heavy rains pose an enormous threat to South Florida, an area already drenched from more than 14 inches of rain last month. Eta could dump an additional 6 to 12 inches, forecasters are saying. It has since moved back over the Gulf of Mexico. The National Hurricane Center said in its latest advisory that Eta was just 55 miles north-northwest of the Dry Tortugas and 80 miles west-northwest of Naples. It is moving west at 13 miles per hour, moving over the Gulf of Mexico and towards Florida's Big Bend region, which is the Pensacola area. They said it is currently packing maximum sustained winds of 65 miles per hour. Some strengthening is forecasted over the next day or so. It is expected to become a hurricane overnight into Wednesday and then weakening before reaching Florida. And they just changed the live picture on us, but that's a-okay. We've got a different one for you that we can bring to you right here. And actually, we have a second vantage point as well I can bring to you here, but that's a-okay when they switch the feeds on us. Okay, so this is still Port Canaveral, just a different camera. Direct impact to Central Florida is forecasted to be felt later in the week and into the weekend. However, the region has started to feel gusty winds and rainfall. Strong winds, heavy rains, and dangerous storm surge are possible in Florida, according to the NHC. So, tropical storm warnings for the Florida coast from Brevard and Volusia County line to Anna Maria Island, Florida Keys from Ocean Reef to the Dry Tortugas, including Florida Bay, Lake Okeechobee, and a tropical storm watch is the Cuban provinces of La Habana, Artemisa, Mayabec, Pinar del Rio, and the Isle of Youth. So again, we're going to keep a very close eye on Eta, especially because the News Now from Fox East Coast Hub is right here in Orlando, Florida. So I was talking about election news as well over the weekend. It was a very big weekend for the Biden campaign. So what's going on in Delaware, the aftermath, right? And where does the Biden campaign go from here? Well, thanks to our sister station in Fox 29 in Philadelphia, we have a little bit of a clearer picture.
So after waiting days, on Saturday, Joe Biden became President-elect Joe Biden. And after making his speech, he very quickly decided that he wanted to get to work. And that's what's taking place here in Wilmington, Delaware, at the scene of his acceptance speech, the Chase Center. Municipal workers are cleaning up this area that has previously been closed by Secret Service and security to the media, now open. They're getting to work And President-elect Biden says that he also wants to begin getting to work as soon as possible. So this morning, the first meeting of a new coronavirus task force will take place. The names of the task force members have been announced. It's a committee of 13 medical experts with names like former Obama administration Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, former Food and Drug Administration Commissioner David Kessler, and Dr. Marcella Nunez-Smith, a Yale professor. They've been named as the co-chairs. Also notable for people in this area, Wilmington, Philadelphia, Dr. Zeke Emanuel, chair of the Department of Medical Ethics and Health Policy at the University of Pennsylvania. He's worked extensively in public health and in government in the past. He will also be a member of that task force. And one that's raising some eyebrows and perhaps some questions, former Trump administration official Rick Bright, who after being demoted spoke out against the Trump administration's approach to the pandemic. He too will join the task force. So President-elect Biden appears to have made good on his promise that he made during the acceptance speech that he would not wait, he would immediately get to work, and that's what they're planning to do today. Now, we do expect to get some sort of an update from that coronavirus task force a little bit later on today so they can tell us the progress and the plans that they have going forward. So in Wilmington at the Chase Center, I'm Bill Anderson.
All right, everybody. All right, everyone. That was Bill Anderson from Fox 29 in Philadelphia. Huge thanks to our sister stations across the country that provide us all this content to bring to you here on News Now from Fox. Again, my name is Pilar Arias. We're continuing to stay on the election 2020, and even some would consider campaign trails, because President Donald Trump, his legal team, including former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, speaking over the weekend, talking about, yes, they are planning on contesting this all the way to the end, right? That legal actions have been filed. They're going to continue to be filed. They're hoping that they will make it all the way to court. Some of these cases have already been dropped, but again, we're continuing to stay on top of all of this development for you right here on News Now from Fox. So what I'm going to show you next is the latest update from the Trump campaign, talking about what they plan to do next.
On behalf of all of American Latino, on behalf of QueroSaberNV.com, a project that we started to raise awareness and get Christian Democrats who are Latinos who've been voting the wrong way. We're trying to get them on board to open up their eyes. We've been educating them, and we know for a fact that there were thousands of people on the Latino, Hispanic communities that did vote for Trump. We know that for a fact. And we need to stand up for the black voices. We need to stand up for the Asian Pacific voices. America, we need to fight. We need to bring our Lord Jesus back to the table, and he has to fight. This is a struggle of good and evil. We all know it. And Jesus is in the room. He's in the house. I have conversations with people from all over the world, and I can tell you right now, they stand with us. There's more of us. The world needs to know that we are here to fight what the injustices as well that they fight in their countries, and they are all with us. There are more of us all over the world, and I say more of us meaning in one spirit. We know what justice is. We know the right and the wrong of what's going on in our country, and we need to also weed out all of these swamp creatures that have been in every single state, not just in Washington, everybody, but it exists everywhere. It exists in Nevada. It exists in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, New York, and we need to bring up this to President Trump. He needs to know who the wolves in the sheep's clothing are. We need to bring this to his attention. And in Jesus' name, I close this.
Amen, amen. Again, we have another representative from Los Angeles, Raise the Philam Voice convener, Mr. Mark Ang.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much, everyone. And thanks for being here, because the battle hasn't ended yet. And I think the news media networks are being very premature, don't you think? We have so many incidents in Michigan where you have ballots, 100,000 ballots with only Biden checked. Don't you find that a little fishy? I do. Or how about in Georgia, when he just gets enough ballots to just slip below 0.02%? How ridiculous is that? And I'll tell you, coming from California, we did this. We had the test run in Orange County when we had 4 congressional seats stolen from us. Okay, and they knew what to do, because I'll tell you how mail-in ballots work. Okay, they send out a bunch of mail-in ballots to every eligible registered voter. And guess what? If you don't fill it out, they have voted for you. That is called ballot manufacturing. And they figure out how many votes on election day they are shortfalled with, and they fill out the requisite number of ballots, and suddenly they're 1% ahead. Wow. This is what's happening now nationwide. There's a system called Dominion that all of the states are using. And now all the states are in lockstep, and they're stealing red states from us like Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. So I can't wait till they litigate this. Win or lose, we must support the recount effort and make sure to get the best lawyers. Okay? And actuaries. Trump campaign needs actuaries. If you know any good actuaries, let me know so we can send them up and make sure that there's integrity in our elections again. And I'll tell you, the biggest win so far, win or lose, is us Asian Americans and Latino Americans have overperformed. First time we voted this much for Republicans. Americans and LGBT Americans voted 30% for Trump this time around, the highest since 1960. Isn't that amazing? So our movement continues no matter what, okay? Do not stop fighting. Even if Biden becomes the next president, which God forbid that happens, we will keep fighting, and we will win back the House in 2022 and win back the presidency. Maybe Trump will run again in 2024. Thank you.
All right, to represent the African American, we have Mr. Mac Miller.
Hello all. So I am not only representing the African American community. I am Mac Miller. I ran for you in Assembly District 5. When we looked at our numbers, ironically, I am losing by the exact amount more Democrats in that district. We are missing our independent vote in Assembly District 5. Where do they go? I am also the president of the local Chinese American Citizens Alliance. We are a national organization. We are the oldest civil rights organization in this country. This is not about racism, because I'm the first African American to be on the board in 125 years. God is with this country. God is with our patriots. We have representation of all denominations, of all races, of all sexes, and all orientations. That is what we are about. We're about fairness, we're about freedom, and we're about the American Constitution. And no one will be able to take our First Amendment rights away from us, because let us not forget that if you try that, we have the Second Amendment, and we have our federal court to back us up. I am not going to fight for you. I won't stop fighting for all of these hardworking men and women out here today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We love you all. Thank you all for being here. I will never stop fighting for you. I was born and raised right down the street in Las Vegas, Nevada. I will be your voice.
All right. So now we have, again, this is in cooperation with Stop the Steal. We have Courtney Holland to speak on behalf of Stop the Steal.
Woo! Thank you, Courtney. How's everybody doing? I love the enthusiasm. I appreciate all of you coming out for our 5th day
All right, everybody, you are watching News Now from Fox. My name is Pilar Arias. Happy Monday. Thank you so much for being here. It's November 9th. Hard to believe 2020 is almost over with. We're getting so close, right? I want to provide you the latest information here. This is members of the Trump campaign, obviously pro-Trump supporters, actually in Las Vegas, Nevada, just yesterday. Trump is planning to revive the campaign-style rallies as he pursues legal challenges to election results. So he's planning to bring his large-scale rallies that were a hallmark of his presidential run, but these will be focused on his ongoing litigation as he challenges the results of last week's election. That's at least what Fox News is being told. Some of you are going to see a quick commercial break while I continue to provide updates with this. And according to a report by Axios and confirmed by Fox News, Trump's campaign plans to take a less traditional path to challenging the results of the election, including holding, quote, a series of Trump rallies focused on the campaign's ongoing legal efforts in numerous states across the country. Along with the rallies, Trump is also planning to use obituaries of people who allegedly voted but are actually dead as evidence of the voter fraud he's been claiming. The campaign is also sending recount teams to Georgia, Arizona, and Pennsylvania, with Representative Doug Collins, the Republican from the state of Georgia, heading up the efforts in the Peach State. The president has promised legal action in the coming days as he refused to concede his loss to Biden, making an aggressive pitch for donors to help finance any court fight. Trump and his campaign have leveled accusations of large-scale voter fraud in Pennsylvania and other states that broke for Biden, so far without proof. Despite these efforts, Trump aides and allies have acknowledged privately the legal fights would, at best, forestall the inevitable, and some had deep reservations about the president's attempts to undermine faith in the vote. But they said Trump and a core group of allies were aiming to keep his loyal base of supporters on his side, even in defeat. So we're going to continue to listen in here in Las Vegas.
Okay, if you all see these Stop the Steal signs, on the bottom there is a website called stopthesteal.us. That is where you can go to see the updates about Washington, D.C. and what other Stop the Steal events are going on across the country. So make sure you do that. Also, Big Tech is censoring us big time right now. We get the word out about Stop the Steal. I need you all to go back to the 1990s way of getting information out. Oh, yeah. Send out emails. Text the website to 5 different people you know across the country, not just here in Nevada. Blast it everywhere. I will say this, I encourage you to not use the hashtag Stop the Steal because they are censoring that. Okay? Parler is a great platform. Make sure you sign up over there as well. But again, we got to get back to our old-fashioned 1990s way of communication. Word of mouth is going to be our most effective tool on getting our message out because we know we're being censored. The media is not portraying the entire story as well. So we need to make sure we do everything that we can to get out and stop the steal.
That's right.
Okay?
Stop the steal.
Alright, so I'm not sure if we're going to have any other events here in Las Vegas for the rest of the week. We're going to be focusing on Saturday's event here locally in Las Vegas, also in Washington, D.C. Myself, Michael, and Megan will be heading out to D.C., so we won't be here. But we're going to be marching all the way to the Supreme Court. Alright, can I get a Stop the Steal chant going?
Stop the steal! Stop the steal! Stop the steal!
official statement from the official Trump campaign. Former Attorney General Adam Laxalt. Round of applause for him. He's on his way. All right. And Chairman of the American Conservative Union, Matt Schlapp. On his way as well, along with some other members. That's them right here in the bus. They need to be able to come in here directly up here to the microphones and be able to make their statement. All right? So we just need to make sure we kind of part the Red Sea here and make way so that they can come up and get the statement. All right? We've got national media here, so I just want to remind you guys of that. So be aware. And they're going to be pulling up here in just a second.
National media, come through! You liar!
All right, I think they're going to be coming here in just a moment. Guys, can we get another chant going? Yeah. How about 4 more years? 4 more years! 4 more years! 4 more years! 4 more years! I can't hear you! 4 more years! 4 more years! 4 more years! Louder! 4 more years! 4 more years! 4 more years! 4 more years! All right! 4 more years! 4 more years! Let's get 4 more years!
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Adam Laxalt, the former Attorney General of the state of Nevada. A few days ago, I presented to all of you. We presented to all of you we would provide evidence of voter fraud in the state of Nevada. Now, how did we get here? Many of us were warning about the fact that the Democrats unilaterally, fundamentally altered our voting system inside 90 days. We warned that the state of Nevada was just simply not ready to give us a fully fair and secure election. We pointed out that this system that moved to mail-in balloting simply did not have enough checks in it. We pointed out that the voter rolls in Clark County had a lot of improper voters, and we pointed out that the signature verification process and these things were simply not going to protect the system. We were told that signature verification would save all chances of fraud. But what we've discovered is that we have over 600,000 votes that have been counted in the state of Nevada through the mail-in system. This campaign has not observed, has not laid our eyes on a ballot signature, an envelope signature, and a voter roll signature on a single one of those 600,000 voters. And in particular, the Clark County Registrar went with a machine called the Agilis machine. And at least 200,000 votes were counted through the signature verification process of this machine only. I will repeat for the media, no human beings looked at those signature matches to confirm they were in fact matches. Now we have artificial intelligence and computer photographic forensic experts that are absolutely positive that the fact that Joe Gloria, which was admitted in court, reduced the factory setting to 40%, that in order for that system to properly work would take months and months of testing with a large amount of experts, and that simply was not done. 200,000 of the votes went through this computer system that we cannot be sure verified these votes properly. Now, as we said, we were going to present evidence of major voter irregularities and voter fraud, and we've been pouring those out over the last 24 hours. I'm going to turn it over to Matt Schlapp to go into particulars.
Thank you, Adam. Someone even brought their dog. It's important. That dog might have voted, you're right. It's important for people to know that what happened in Vegas, the entire world needs to understand. In this point, in this election cycle, it is critical that the vast majority of Americans have confidence in the result of this election. Yes. We have seen political division like we haven't seen in a number of years. The way we resolve division, even when you don't get your way in an election, is to count every legal ballot. Yes. And to make sure that we count every legal ballot. Yes. And make sure that illegal ballots do not reduce the civil rights and the votes of those who voted legally. Since we've put this group together to scrutinize the information that we've been able to learn while being cut out of the observation process and the tallying that's going on in Clark County, we now have thousands of examples of voter irregularity. That takes several forms. I've been involved in politics a long time. I was shocked to learn from our hotline, from the conversations we've been having, from things sent to the website, that hundreds of Republicans were disenfranchised, were denied the right to vote, both on Election Day and leading up in the early vote. They were put through a process that proved impossible to satisfy in order to cast their legal vote. We will be finding and investigating and going through all of these examples, of which I said there are hundreds. Dead people voted in Clark County. That is a tricky thing because obviously for these families, this is a very tragic reminder of a loss that they have just recently had to go through. We have two examples that we have talked about and want to talk about today. One is the death of Rosemary Hartle in 2017. The other is the death of Fred Stokes Jr. in 2017. Miraculously, they both voted, which means that the voter file that was used to send out these mail-in ballots was not deduped by death records. We know that underage voters voted in this most recent election. How difficult would it have been to make it clear that nobody would have been mailed a ballot if they had a birth date after a certain year? We know that in this area, which has been gripped with the idea of an economic shutdown, that over 100,000 people left. Yet, through our due diligence, we've been able to find that at least 9,000 of them voted in this election. Non-Nevadans voting in Nevada. have been to simply go through the available databases to dedupe all those who had moved away from the voter files before these ballots were mailed.
Or they don't do that, I still got my...
We have, over the last couple days, had many brave people call us who have witnessed tampering, who have witnessed wrongdoing. These are brave whistleblowers. These folks worked in the counting center, were involved in the tallying, and Fox News recently reported that one of these whistleblowers had to quit, and I'm going to just use the veiled pronoun, had to quit his job after he worked on about 14,000 ballots. When he would raise objections to clearly improper ballots, he was told by his supervisor to put them through the process and count them anyway. This whistleblower believes that there were other such employees who were also uncomfortable with the fact that when they could see clearly objectionable ballots, they were still forced to put them in the tally. These ballots can never be taken back out of that tally. These ballots, there's no way to remedy ballots that were put in an improper way. A second whistleblower, we have...
Pilar Arias here, everyone, breaking in just to let you know some breaking news right now from Fox Business. Here's a live look at the big board. Dow Jones Industrial just started trading for the day. We just saw the opening bell from Fisker, and I had to look up Fisker. I didn't know they were an automotive company. Now, the latest that we are hearing, even though you're not seeing any green on that big board just yet, stocks are surging. Dow futures soar over 1,700 points on Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine news that everyone's talking about this morning. Stock futures picked up major momentum this morning along with oil after positive news from Pfizer on a COVID-19 vaccine and after Joe Biden was named president-elect over the weekend. Dow futures up nearly 1,700 points. You see the Dow up about 1,400 points right now, a gain of over 6%. The S&P 500 also rising by 4.5% in early trade, while the tech-heavy NASDAQ composite ran up 1%. The gains will likely drive the U.S. averages closer to reclaiming record levels. Traders are reacting positively to the news that Pfizer and BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine proved to be 90% effective in the first 94 patients it was tested on. Shares moving higher in the pre-market, while Moderna, also working on a vaccine, drifted lower. This is a quote. Today is a great day for science and humanity. The first set of results from our phase 3 COVID-19 vaccine trial proves the initial evidence of our vaccine's ability to prevent COVID-19, said Pfizer CEO and chairman Dr. Albert Bourla in a statement. Continuing on to say, we are reaching this critical milestone in our vaccine development program at a time when the world needs it most, with infection rates setting new records, hospitals nearing overcapacity, and economies struggling to reopen. With today's news, we are a significant step closer to providing people around the world with a much-needed breakthrough to help bring an end to this global health crisis. Now, this is a significant milestone in the fight against a virus that has infected more than 50 million people around the globe, resulting in over 1.2 million deaths. Of course, President Trump in a tweet celebrated the development, saying, quote, stock market up big, vaccine coming soon, report 90% effective, such great news. That's the tweet from the president. While President-elect Joe Biden said in a statement, quote, I congratulate the brilliant women and men who helped produce this breakthrough and to give us such cause for hope. At the same time, it is also important to understand that the end of the battle against COVID-19 is still months away. Of course, when we're talking about the economy as a result of the pandemic, airlines, cruise lines rallied on the developments while stay-at-home stocks, including Zoom and Amazon, slipped. So that's the latest business news there. All of that information coming from foxbusiness.com. We're going to keep a very close eye on stocks today. Again, we do have a bunch of other news happening across the country. We're keeping a very close eye on Tropical Storm Ada, especially here on the News Now from Fox East Coast Hub, where it's impacting so many Floridians and others here in the area. So I just wanted to tell you the latest news, show you the Dow Jones Industrial Big Board. We're going to go back out to Las Vegas, Nevada to continue to watch the latest update from the Trump campaign. Oh, And actually, some of you are going to see a quick commercial break.
Had to quit his job after he worked on about 14,000 ballots when he would raise objections to clearly improper ballots. He was told by his supervisor to put them through the process and count them anyway. This whistleblower believes that there were other such employees who were also uncomfortable with the fact that when they could see clearly objectionable ballots, they were still forced to put them in the tally. These ballots can never be taken back out of that tally. These ballots, there's no way to remedy ballots that were put in an improper way. A second whistleblower we have not talked about before described leaving on, and I'm going to use the male pronoun again, leaving on his lunch hour. And while he was on his lunch hour, he decided to exercise around the counting center. While he was walking, he noticed a van pulled up at the center marked Biden-Harris. The doors of the van were open, ballots were clearly visible, ballots were opened with letter openers, and ballots were filled in and resealed in envelopes.
No integrity.
These people who were involved in this activity then decided to create a human shield around what they were doing in the van. It's important for you to understand that as we are coming to making public, it's important for you to understand that as we are making this information public, we are on the outside looking in. I've never experienced an election where the idea of observing the count was considered out of bounds.
Right.
But yet I think it is clear that with the evidence we're presenting, that if we had more information and this was a more regularized and legal process, we would be able to tell you even more. As I said, dead people voted in Nevada. One of those people who voted was Rosemary Hartle, God rest her soul. We have a friend of the family, Marianne Rambola, who would like to talk to us now.
No integrity.
Hi, Kirk Hartle, her husband, could not make it today as he's in transit. Though I am here to say that it is heartbreaking what is happening in America, and for this family to be exploited, or anybody who has faced a tragedy in losing somebody and their vote has been counted as a deceased person. This is just not America, and this is not right, and things need to be heard and taken care of, because it's just heartbreaking for my friend Kirk and his family to have received this information that her vote has been counted. Thank you.
So sorry.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. We now want to hear from Chris Prudhomme from the Nevada GOP. Chris, please come forward.
And here. Hello guys, my name is Chris Prudhomme with the Nevada GOP. I've been fortunate to spend a lot of time in the office in these obviously recent weeks and experienced a lot of unfortunate things that have obviously transpired, very disturbing things. I've actually talked to a father myself. of a 17-year-old son. He decided to call us at the office and explain to us that his son registered to vote but actually received a ballot at 17 years old. These are things that are unacceptable. The voter rolls need to be clean. There are numerous amounts of issues. You have 7,600 individuals who were entered in a national change of address, and those individuals we're actually verifying at this moment if they actually voted or not. You have 176,000 individuals who have left the state of Nevada. We're verifying that as well to make sure that correlates with any other information to see if they voted any other place. And what Matt said earlier, 9,000 individuals, mailing addresses who voted by mail in this election. We're also verifying that to see who did or did not vote. And some of it could be wrong, some of it could not be wrong. But the bottom line is this, folks. There's a serious issue going on. And we're not saying anything, but all we are looking to say is we want a fair and free election. The media does not get to decide who is president. It is simply about having a fair and free election, and that's all we're simply saying. Because we have an election coming up in January, we have midterms coming up again in 2022, and another presidential election in 4 years. So we want to continuously make sure that the voter rolls are clear and they are cleaned up. Because even one is too much. The fact that we have dead people on the voter rolls is unacceptable. That shows that there is a major issue and a major problem, and this will not be tolerated.
Okay, that will take a few questions.
Mr. Waxman, the Nevada Attorney General has said just this afternoon that the complaints, the alleged whistleblowers, have not made any official complaints either online or in person. If they were so concerned about what was going on, why did they not come forward sooner?
Well, because the whistleblower is scared to come forward. This is a Democrat machine running this particular voting center. The Attorney General is a very outspoken Democrat, and so she has come forward with her story. It has been sworn in an affidavit, and that has been referred to the DOJ. So we are continuing to review all of our legal options, and we intend to be able to put all this evidence we are finding forward, and we will seek all legal remedies.
The Nevada Secretary of State is a Republican. She has said she has seen no evidence whatsoever of widespread fraud.
Well, unfortunately, the Nevada Secretary of State doesn't look for any voter fraud. She is not involved in the system. She doesn't have people to investigate the system. It was shown to the public a couple months ago. She has a few investigators to cover the entire state. They're a complaint-based system, and so they only know what they know. But the bottom line is that, you know, she has to defend this system because her name is on the line. We raised these concerns with her a few months ago, and we continue to raise to the media, and we just said, please ask these questions. Please dig into this. Every single national media person I have spoken to one-on-one, when I've walked through the signature verification process, not a single one, any entity, left or right, has been able to come off that phone saying that this system can guarantee that there's no fraud. It's simply impossible. The system is too lax.
Let me just say one thing. On the question of fraud, when we first started to see what the evidence was, people said, well, you don't have evidence of fraud. And so we have been, or irregularity. We have been putting these examples out on Twitter. We're definitely on the outside looking in. But I think we have to ask ourselves as a democracy, how many illegal ballots are enough illegal ballots for us to say that we have to do much better? And if we're going to water down the ballots of legal voters, don't we understand that we're violating one of the most important civil rights we have as Americans?
Yes. Do you believe if you're successful that President Trump...
I'm sorry, start over.
Do you believe that if you're a successful President Trump can win Nevada?
We are going to continue to pursue all of these irregularities, and we're going to fight if we have any legal avenue to bring these irregularities to the courts. That's absolutely what we're going to do. Now, to your specific question, which is what we're seeing out of the media now, which is, have we produced enough illegal voters to overturn the election? That, of course, is an absurd question. Let's first start covering the fraud and now acknowledge that there are illegal voters. We only have access to so much information. I encourage you all to start asking these questions alongside us. Next question. Let's take one more.
some of you are going to see a quick commercial break. More news now from Fox is just moments away.
Because of the system that was set up here, as I said, we're on the outside looking in. It's literally like trying to find needles in a haystack. We have found over 9,000 such needles, and we will find many more. Yes.
Hold on. Hold on.
Do you have any evidence at all that the Agilis machine is not working as it's supposed to?
Dominion. As I said, we have spoken with experts in this arena. This is very important because no human beings look at a signature match. Once the machine matches it, no human beings will ever look at that again. And the two problems with the Agilis machine are, one, the setting was reduced, and experts are telling us once you reduce the setting, then the reliability goes out the window. And so we intend to push forward with that, and we intend to press that case. The second important thing, which thank you for prompting me, is this. This also came out in live testimony. The factory setting on the Agilis machine is supposed to be 200 DPI photo quality, okay? So the machine takes the picture of the written envelope and matches with the computer image. The image that is being used by the Clark County Registrar is below that 200 DPI setting. Not surprisingly, because it's using an antiquated DMV system that doesn't have the highest technology of photo image quality. We are in the process of ascertaining how significant that is, but we believe it casts doubt on a number of those signature matches. I can't tell you whether it's small or large, but here's our main point. We have 200,000 through that machine. We have another 400,000 plus through hand or through eye verification, okay? Human verification. We haven't been able to see those. I am positive if you all got to see those 600,000, you're going to see countless mismatches, and that makes perfect sense. Some of those will be fraud. Some of those will be people attempting to just sign a loose cursive signature on an envelope, all right? Some will be innocent signature, that we all change our signature. The DMV file's 10 years old, and it's not going to look like a match. But please, ask these questions. Ask these questions of the registrar. What standard do the human verifiers use? How do they determine that these two matches are enough? And they will tell you there is no standard, and I hope you understand that means there is subjectivity in the system. You may look at two signatures and say, that looks like a match. The person sitting next to them may look at those and say, I don't think that's a match. Now, in a system that's open and transparent, we would be there and we'd be able to say, we don't think that's a match. And there'd be a process to challenge that. But the process that the Democrats created, we have no ability to observe or challenge any mail-in ballot signature verification. We'll take one more question.
Hold on, let me say one thing. We are here because we want to, in a transparent fashion, share the information we're learning. If we don't answer your questions today, we will be available to answer your questions, especially as we know more.
Matt, you've had two.
Thank you all very much.
Lawsuits thrown out already. You're touching the sword. Are you guys touching the sword?
All right, everybody, that was the latest from the Trump campaign in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're continuing to take a look throughout the day to the big board. Dow Jones Industrial stocks are surging after Pfizer says their COVID-19 vaccine trial is 90% effective. So it's a little bit of positive news there. We'll keep a very close eye on the latest developments. Meanwhile, I do want to show you, we are expecting any moment now New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio providing a COVID-19 and likely an election update. In terms of President Donald Trump, I'm showing you the White House now where I'm going to look up his schedule for the day. Let's see what he is up to. No public events scheduled for today. but an in-town pool call time at the White House at 10 a.m., which is about 11 minutes away. So we'll keep a very close eye on that. If any developments do happen, we will certainly bring them to you here on News Now from Fox. It's an exciting time out here in the Space Coast, as we like to call it here, Port Canaveral in Florida. Again, everyone, my name is Pilar Arias, one of several News Now from Fox hosts. Thank you for starting your week off, your day off with us right here. So the latest, NASA and SpaceX are targeting November 14th for the launch of the first crew rotation mission to the International Space Station, better known as ISS. And for those of you who are ever wondering, hey, why is Pilar looking away at the screen instead of looking straight at us on camera? It's because I'm kind of reading the latest information here from our sister station, Fox 35, right here in Orlando. So again, liftoff is planned for 7:49 Eastern time in the evening from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Again, Saturday, November 14th. So this Saturday, it's going to be an exciting time. The launch was scheduled for October 31st, but delayed to allow time for SpaceX to resolve an issue with the Falcon 9 rocket engines that scrubbed a recent launch attempt with a GPS navigation satellite. That's according to spaceflightnow.com. What I am going to show you is there was kind of a meet and greet yesterday with the astronauts themselves, and we're told that there's going to be media availability again today. So very exciting times here on the Space Coast, and we're going to watch it right here on News Now from Fox.
Okay, since it's a Japanese question, I'm gonna reply in Japanese. 今回の
All right, everybody, I'm having a little bit of a tape playback issue with this here really quickly. So what I'm going to do for you, I'm going to make sure that I get this whole news conference for you. I'm not exactly sure why it started so late. NASA TV provided us this update. And here are the astronauts themselves walking up to the news conference. All right, now we should be able to listen in.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Bob Cabana, and I have the privilege of leading this amazing team at the Kennedy Space Center. It's a real pleasure for me to welcome you all here, to welcome the crew for Commercial Crew Program's Crew 1 mission to the International Space Station, launching next Saturday, if everything stays on schedule, in that Crew Dragon aboard the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from right here at the Kennedy Space Center, Launch Pad 39A. I tell you, it is really exciting. I can't tell you how great it is to be able to welcome a crew here to go to space again. You guys, I envy each and every one of you. It's my pleasure now. You know, I got to say, this whole effort to commercialize low Earth orbit, this is just a giant step in making that happen, and we're going to continue with that. And I want to introduce somebody who's been a real advocate for the commercialization of low Earth orbit, our Deputy Administrator, Jim Morehard. Jim?
Guys, we welcome these 4 astronauts. They are the best America and Japan have to offer. We're bringing free nations together to advance the human condition for all mankind. And we're doing so with American ingenuity and innovation. We're talking reusable rockets and reusable space capsules. And we're going to the space station that's allowed us to do research there for 20 years, as well as keep a human presence there, which we need to continue. 22 years ago, Bob Cabana commanded the first International Space Station assembly mission, where the station was activated and entered by our astronauts. So today, we have the beginning, and we have our future. And I'm so proud of all of them. Now, let me kick you some knowledge about Jim Bridenstine so I can introduce him. Honestly, he's my dear friend and my boss. Let me introduce Jim Bridenstine.
Thank you, Jim Morehard, and thank you, Bob Cabana, for always doing a great job here at the Kennedy Space Center. Welcome to our astronauts. Before we start talking to our astronauts, I want to recognize what's happened here at the Kennedy Space Center. Transformational activities that have resulted in this being a multi-user spaceport. And Colonel Bob Cabana has been leading this effort for over a decade now. And it's been amazing. And the partners that we have with SpaceX and Boeing as it relates to our commercial launches, Bob, we're so grateful for all of your service. And of course, Jim Morehard, thank you for the introduction. I will tell you, right now NASA has the highest budget it's ever had in nominal dollars. It doesn't hurt to have a deputy administrator who comes from the legislative arena, who has worked in the Senate, and who can help us accomplish these big things. So thank you to Jim Morehard as well. So today we are taking another big leap in this transformation in how we do human spaceflight. And what we're talking about here is the commercialization of space, where NASA is one customer of many customers in a very robust commercial marketplace in low Earth orbit. What we're doing is we're transitioning from a test flight to operational flights. Make no mistake, every flight is a test flight when it comes to space travel, but it's also true that we need to routinely be able to go to the International Space Station. And so we're grateful once again to our partners from SpaceX for the Falcon 9 rocket and the Crew Dragon. We're also grateful to the NASA team that has worked so hard to get our astronauts ready, and of course, we're exceptionally grateful to our astronauts themselves. It's important to note that back in 2012, when you think about the commercial launch industry, the United States of America had 0% of the global market share in commercial space launch. Because of the investments of NASA for the last 10 years, because of these investments, commercial resupply, and now commercial crew, over 70% of the commercial launch market is American. This is really about launching America and doing it in a way that is competitive, where we can get the absolute best value for every dollar that the American taxpayer gives us. So this is the transformation that's happening, and we are extremely excited about it. I will say we're here today to recognize the astronauts who are, of course, in quarantine and getting ready for what will be another historic flight. I'm going to introduce the mission commander, Mike Hopkins, who is an Air Force test flight engineer by trade. He's also an aerospace engineer from the University of Illinois. In fact, he played football at the University of Illinois. And of course, got a master's degree in aerospace engineering at Stanford as well. So please welcome Mike Hopkins.
Thank you, sir. And good afternoon. Good afternoon, Florida. Good afternoon, America. It feels really good to be here. I'd like to start off by just saying thank you. On behalf of the crew of Resilience, on behalf of our families, we want to say a big thank you to all of the people at SpaceX, at NASA, and in the DoD that have been working tirelessly to get us to this point. It's really been an incredible effort by an incredible group of people. For the crew, we're ready. We've spent the last couple of weeks kind of fine-tuning our training, and we've also had an opportunity to spend a little bit of time at home with our families, and we're truly honored to be a part of this transition. As the administrator said, we're starting this new era where we're going to rotate crews to the International Space Station from American soils with our commercial partners like SpaceX, and so we're very excited to be a part of that. Colonel Cabana, thank you in advance for the hospitality, and we look forward to the week ahead. Thank you. And I guess I'm supposed to introduce the next crew member. So it's my honor as well to introduce Commander Victor Glover. Victor and I have been working here together for the past couple of years now. Victor is from Cal Poly. Victor also may have happened to play football, but on the other side of the ball. But it's definitely my honor to introduce Victor. You won't find a better astronaut out there, a better father, a better husband, a better person. Victor.
Thank you for the introduction, Hopper, and thank you, gentlemen, for the kind words. And welcome to all of you. Welcome to this very special place, the Kennedy Space Center shuttle landing facility. I've never had the opportunity to land a space shuttle here, but I've landed the training aircraft that we fly, and every single time I know that a few days later I'm going to come back and I'm going to fly that jet out of here. And it's really special today because we flew an airplane in here, but the plan is for us to leave on top of a rocket. So that's pretty neat. That's pretty awesome. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. You know, we have this great team. We have this great mission ahead of us, and we all look forward to getting on orbit and doing our best to make you all proud of us. So thank you for your support, and thank you for being here today. Go Falcon, go Dragon, and go Resilience. I have the honor of introducing my crewmate, Dr. Shannon Walker. And I will say that she's a great crewmate. Mike and I were at this for 2.5 years, and Shannon and Soichi were added to the crew about 6-8 months ago. And it has really been an amazing opportunity to learn from Shannon and Soichi, and her experience at NASA and her experience in the astronaut office have been very valuable to me, the rookie on the crew. And so I am greatly in debt to both of them for their experience. And so I would like to bring up Shannon Walker.
All right, thank you so much. It is so exciting to be here. Yeah, as Victor said, I've been in the astronaut office a long time. I've had one other flight. I did not launch out of Florida for that flight, and so it is so.
Some of you are going to see a very quick commercial break.
The difficulty with going third in line here is everybody has already said thank you to everybody, but I'll just echo their thanks to the whole team that have gotten us here, our training team, the people building the hardware, the space station that's ready for us. It's just so exciting. So thank you everybody for coming out and seeing us off. And with that, I think I'll just hand it over to my crewmate Soichi. Soichi is somebody that I have known for a very long time. As luck would have it, on his last shuttle flight, he actually flew with my husband, and so I had all the stories about Soichi, and now I have the privilege of actually flying with Soichi this time. So I'm very grateful. Thank you, Soichi.
Thank you, Shannon. Yeah, I have to do the speech in Japanese and English, so start off with Japanese. 日本の皆さん、こんにちは。15年ぶりに、このケネディ宇宙センターに、プライムクルーとして Prime Crew in KSC. I'd like to thank everybody to support our training the last 8 months. It's been a tough time. It's been a long wait, but the Crew One is in town, and we are the only game in town this week. And we go to space with pride. Our name is Resilience. Resilience is power to recover, will to restore, and we strive to survive. Our patch has no name on it because our mission is for everyone. In fact, Crew One is you one. All for one, one for all. Now, let's go fly.
Okay, we're going to open it up to a few questions here in just one moment, but before we do that, we have one other person to introduce. When we think about our partners in Japan, there isn't a better partner when it comes to space exploration than the nation of Japan. And we are grateful for all of the activities, the astronauts, the capabilities that Japan has produced, really for the community of nations that has been exploring space now for decades. And I want to introduce somebody that's very important to NASA. But I want to start by saying this. When we look at the budget for the United States as it relates to space exploration, as I said before, it is higher now in nominal dollars than it's ever been. It's been on the right trajectory going up. And that's also true in another nation, Japan, who has been an amazing partner, and they've seen what we're trying to accomplish with Artemis. They're committed to it, and of course we've seen a budget request in Japan that has increased their budget by about 50%, which is amazing. So we are so grateful to our partners at the Japanese Space Agency. And of course, I would like to introduce the Japanese Space Agency ISS Program Manager, Junichi Sakai.
Thank you for introducing me.
First of all, on behalf of JAXA, I would like to express my appreciation to all engineers, ground staffs, and administrative people, especially SpaceX and the other cooperative companies for launch-related operations, and NASA. Under such COVID-19 pandemic situations, I believe Crew One mission opens up a new era of low Earth orbit commercializations. I'm honored to be able to witness this great event, and I'm proud that Japanese astronaut Dr. Noguchi is fulfilling his responsibility as a member of this event. Tomorrow, flight readiness review will be held, and I'm expecting that we can confirm all items of flight readiness there. So have a nice trip to the ISS, and see you 6 months later again. 頑張ってください. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, we're ready for Q&A, and remember folks, we only have about 15 minutes with these folks. You can tell that the weather that's coming in, so we want to be very cognizant of that for your safety and everyone else's. So we'll start right here, and as soon as you ask a question, we'll step forward and y'all keep your distance, and we'll start with Marcia. Please give your name and affiliation if you can, and also direct it to which crew member if you can do that too for efficiency. Go ahead.
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press for Commander Hopkins. When you chose the name Resilience, I know you primarily were thinking pandemic, but now your flight is coming on the heels of a drawn-out end to a very difficult campaign and election. So your name has double duty in a way. Could you talk about what message you want to send with the name of your capsule, Resilience, especially in light of current events?
Certainly. Thank you very much. You know, we spent a good afternoon talking about what name we wanted for this vehicle, and there were a lot of really good options. But I guess I'll kind of equate it to when my wife and I named our second son, and we had a couple of names picked out, and we didn't know until he was born what his name would be. And when he came out, it was like, this is Lucas. And so it was the same thing for us as we were going through these names, and we had them all written out on a whiteboard and did all kinds of voting and this and that, but at the end, it just felt right. And it felt right because, as you mentioned, this has been a tough year. It's been a tough year for everybody for a lot of different reasons. And we felt like if the name of our vehicle could give a little hope, a little inspiration, put a smile on people's face, then that is definitely what we wanted to do, and we felt like Resilience was the name that did that. And so it's not something just for us as a crew, but we thought that it also would resonate with everybody, not only in that follows space, but everybody in the country, everybody around the world. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Irene Klotz with Aviation Week. This question I think is maybe for Suichi, since you've gone through now training on 3 different vehicles to get to the ISS. What do you think's been like some of the most different, maybe the most different aspects of now being part of this SpaceX commercial crew era compared to what you've done on for Soyuz and for Shuttle?
Thank you very much for questions. And yeah, I was very fortunate enough to experience space shuttle like Colonel Cabana, and Soyuz like Hopper and Shannon. And this is the great experience. Actually, believe me, the SpaceX has been a great partner. I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised with the way they handle the training and the preparation for the flight. So I have a full confidence continue with the rest of the mission. And our crew is obviously a very nice crew. The Hopper is a great leader, and Ike knows very good, have a good experience with his test flight background. And Shannon, we spent a long time. We're the Columbia survivor. So all four of us have a great history on the space flight, and our crew is really ready to go. Thank you.
Sam Suzuki with NHK for Mr. Noguchi, please. I'll be asking the question in Japanese. コマーシャルクループログラムの、本格的な運用第1号ですが、日本人がクルーの一人に選ばれる意味についてどうお考えでしょうか?
Okay, since it's a Japanese question, I want to reply in Japanese. 今回の、コマーシャルクルー、民間宇宙船での飛行の運用第1号機に、JAXA から宇宙飛行士を、出せたというのはすごく大きな意味があると思います。これからの、有人宇宙飛行を支えていく大きなキープレイヤーとして、コマーシャルフライト、ボーイング、スペース X、その他の新しい会社がどんどん出てくると思いますので、その新しい息吹を日本の皆さんにもお伝えしたいと思います。ありがとうございました。
Hello, Stephen Clark from Spaceflight Now. My question is for Shannon Walker. Since you've launched from Baikonur before, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the differences, maybe different feelings, different emotions, coming down to the Space Coast to launch from American soil compared to your experience launching from Baikonur. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. You know, it's really interesting because I've been involved in the International Space Station program for so many years and have had the privilege of training and working with our partners in all the countries that are part of the partnership. And while there may be some subtle differences, basically underneath it all, it's all about the same. And so going to Baikonur, yep, you're going to a desert somewhere. They've got their traditions on launch preparations, and coming here to Florida, in a lot of ways, it's very familiar. It's the same. We do things a little bit different. It's certainly different countryside, but and it's in English, which is a nice bonus for me. But really, the preparation leading up to launch is the same. It's the same excitement. It's the same focus. It's the same dedication by the teams getting you ready to go. So I would say there's more similarities than there are differences.
Hi, Emery Kelly with Florida Today. Perhaps this is for Commander Hopkins or Mr. Bridenstine. I'm wondering, compared to 2 crew versus 4, how the quarantine procedures are different with double the crew members, and basically how that's been going so far for you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. In terms of quarantine, I don't think it's really been that much different. Certainly with the pandemic, it's changed things a little bit. We really went into a quarantine status at about the 3-week point versus maybe in the past we would have done it at 2 weeks. But in general, for the 4 of us, it's, you know, like I said, we've had an opportunity to spend a little time with our families. Our families went into quarantine as well with us, which I also think has been maybe a little bit different than in the past. But overall, it's worked out pretty well. And I will say, I'll take this opportunity to just thank from NASA and the SpaceX part. You know, we've been doing our training now. In fact, Shannon and Soichi have been with us. Basically, they came on board about the time the pandemic started. And so the training flow that we've done over the past 6, 7, 8 months has been in that environment. And I can't say enough about what NASA and what SpaceX has done to keep us safe, to keep our families safe throughout the whole training process. So it hasn't really just been the last 3 weeks. I really got to say it's been the last 8 months. It's been pretty incredible to see. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Space Coast. Greg Pallone with Spectrum News 13. This actually is for Victor, if you don't mind, sir. First space flight, I mean historic flight. You got a twofer. You got a great crew. I know you're excited. Your thoughts?
Well, Greg, thanks for the question. It's hard to put it into words, really. I mean, you know, the thought of flying in here and rocketing out, it's just surreal. It really is. It's hard to put it into words. I'm excited just to go to space. If we were on the step of Baikonur, going on a Soyuz, I'd be excited. To go live on the space station for 6 months, I'd be excited. And so to be a part of this crew, we have an amazing group here. It's been a blast to train with them in quarantine or not. And we have an amazing spacecraft. We're going to join an amazing team with Kate, Sergey, and Sergey that are already up there. All around, it's just truly amazing. It's hard to put into words. So I'm really grateful to be here.
Marcia Dunn, AP again. I'm just wondering, this upcoming week, how much attention are you going to be paying to storms, weather, and do you have any new traditions you might be starting this week for this new era? Thank you.
Yeah, from the weather standpoint, yes, we're going to be following it very closely. I think we've already started several days ago, actually, getting the weather briefs on what we thought it's going to look like next weekend. Clearly, that's potentially going to have an impact. I think we've moved the static fire from tomorrow to the next day because of the weather conditions. So we'll adapt, we'll adjust, and we'll be ready to go when the weather is ready as well. As far as traditions, you know, Shannon mentioned it. When you launch with the Soyuz, there are a lot of traditions that they've been doing for a lot of years, going all the way back to when Yuri Gagarin first launched. We did have an opportunity this morning to start a new tradition for us. We actually took it a little bit from the Russian side, and we had a departure breakfast with all of our family and the folks that have been in quarantine that are going to be with us. And that was really the first time that we've had a chance as a family and the leadership and the support folks to come together and be together. In fact, it might be the only chance we have, because once we get into this week, we're all going to be going in a lot of different directions. And so that was a nice opportunity just to say hi and thank you and see each other one last time before we rocket out of here. Thanks.
Okay, we got time for two more questions.
Hi, Stephen Clark, Spaceflight Now again for Commander Hopkins. I think you're going to be sworn into the Space Force while you're on the space station, and I wanted to get your thoughts on the significance of being the first Space Force astronaut, and also just some background on how the process went. Did you request to be transferred to the Space Force, or did that come down from the top? Thank you.
No, so I'll start with that one. It definitely was a request. You know, we've had a long relationship. NASA has had a long relationship with the DoD. And so this is just going to be a continuation of that relationship as we've added a new service, a new military service to the ranks. And so as I've had an opportunity to work with what was Air Force Space Command that transitioned into now the Space Force. And so I was already working with and talking with the folks in that group. And so when the Space Force stood up, it was a natural question to ask, what are the opportunities to come over? I feel very honored to have that opportunity to do the transition while I am up on orbit. But again, I think that just recognizes this strong relationship that we have with NASA and the military, and I think it's a pretty special one. Thank you.
One last question.
Sam Suzuki for NHK, for Mr. Noguchi again. And again in Japanese, please. 新たな民間宇宙船で ISS への旅、ほとんど自動化されていますが、不安はないですか?
Thank you. Again, I'm going to reply in Japanese. スペース X の宇宙船のミッション、非常に自動化が進んでいて、これまでのスペースシャトルとソユーズとは違った運用になってますけれども、かなりシステムに関してもしっかりと訓練を積んできてますので、不安はないです。今週の打ち上げに向けてクルーしっかりと準備が進んでいると思います。ありがとうございました。
Okay, thanks everybody. We're going to do a little photo op with them before they get away, but let me hand it back over to Colonel Cabana.
Thank you all so much for coming today to welcome the crew to Florida for this launch. It is an historic day, and it's great to have you guys here. I'd also like to thank our administrator, Jim Bridenstine, for his outstanding leadership and passion for America's space program that got us to this point today. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow at 1:15 on NASA TV, there will be a live media event from crew quarters with the crew, so please tune in to that. And finally, I'll just say, go Falcon, go Dragon, go Perseverance, and Godspeed to you guys. Thank you all.
All right, everybody. So like you just heard, it's going to be today at 1:15 Eastern, a virtual crew media engagement at the Kennedy Space Center right there with those SpaceX Crew 1 astronauts, Cape Canaveral, Florida. We will have it for you right here on News Now from Fox. But again, my name is Pilar Arias. Happy Monday. Thank you so much for being with us. We are keeping a very close eye on stocks as they are surging today following the Pfizer news that their COVID-19 vaccine trial 90% effective. So impacting the stock markets, impacting the economy in good ways so far this morning. I want to show you the big board right now. This is the latest that we are seeing. They were up, the Dow futures about 1,700 points, but now Dow Jones Industrial currently up about 12 to 1,300 points. Nothing but green on the big board today, though, so very good news. We are on standby for an update from New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, likely COVID-19 plus election. He's about 20 minutes behind schedule. Some of you are going to see a very quick commercial break. In about 10 minutes, you're going to have Rain Augustine come and join you here on the show for a bit. And then Mike Page is going to take over from Phoenix, Arizona. So, yeah, News Now from Fox has gone national. We've got the East Coast hub here in Orlando, Florida. And then we also still have our headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona. So now we're going to head on over to Dr. Mike Sirigliano. This is a pretty much daily update from our sister station, Fox 29 in Philadelphia, with all coronavirus updates. Again, you're watching News Now from Fox. My name is Pilar Arias. Happy Monday. I hope you all had a fabulous weekend.
Dr. Mike Sirigliano with Penn Medicine joining us out of Philadelphia. Good to see you, Dr. Mike.
Always a pleasure, Thomas.
I know the elections has kind of overshadowed what we're going through with the pandemic. People are still being infected. People are still dying. Your assessment, where do we stand right now?
Well, we're not in a good place. In fact, several states, one in particular, is calling for an emergency mandate to wear masks, and we're not in a good place. We have to focus on the fact that this virus is not going away. We have to wear masks, we have to socially distance, and we have to limit small group gatherings, especially around the holidays.
There's some developing news coming out on this Monday regarding Pfizer and its vaccine trials. What more do we know?
Well, the data signal has come back showing about a 90% effectiveness. Now, that is great news. That means that this vaccine is both safe and effective. And remember, the FDA states that it has to be more than 50% effective for it to get approval. 90%, I will take it.
So what happens at this point? Do they apply for an emergency use authorization, or do they go for full approval from the FDA?
Well, I would think that it's going to be brought up to the FDA, and plans will be made rapidly to get this approved through some emergency authorization protocol, and they will start distributing it. And I can tell you that there are plans already in place to get these vaccines distributed and to make them accessible to everyone.
What does that mean as far as a timeline? What are we looking at here? A couple of months? Mid next year?
Well, we're talking millions and millions of people getting millions and millions of doses. And several of the vaccination protocols involve 2 doses. So it's going to be a daunting task and not something that's going to be easy, but we need to get it done, and we will get there. The infrastructure is in place. Going to happen.
Let's talk about the election, because it does go hand in hand here. President-elect Joe Biden, he's announcing a coronavirus task force. What more do we know, and how will this be different from the current task force?
Well, I'm hopeful, and look, I am not involved in politics one bit, but I can tell you for a fact, I'm at the University of Pennsylvania on the task force. Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel was just named to that, and my hope is that we will base everything on hard science, factual information, and the other thing, Thomas, is that we will have one voice We will have one guiding authority to say, look, everyone, this is what you do. This is the plan. This is how it goes. And it has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with science.
So with that said, and I know you don't like to get into politics, your colleagues certainly don't like to talk about politics here, but do you get a sense among your colleagues that this could be a turning point in the U.S. response to this pandemic?
Well, Thomas, what we need is a unified approach that starts from the top and not gives one statement and then another. For instance, masks. I think one of the things President-elect Biden said is he's going to mandate everyone has to wear a mask. It sounds simple, but that's going to be the law. You want to go outside, got to wear a mask. It's science. It's not politics.
But I wonder, do you fear that people will become more defiant to follow guidance from a new administration?
America is the land of the free and home of the brave. And when I talk to patients, even before all of this started, about things like vaccinations, you are free to make a decision and you can be brave about the decision you make. Look, we go by science, and there's all kinds of people who don't believe in science. They believe what they want to believe. You can talk to people about it, but the bottom line is some people will just never buy into the science. They won't. So we all have to do the best we can to try to get people to do the right thing. And this fall, Thomas, I've been rather successful in getting people to get flu shots. Even people who have never gotten flu shots before have been getting them this year. So there is hope.
Yeah, Dr. Fauci also weighed in over the weekend. There's this sense of hope that the continued restrictions will actually lead to a lighter flu season. Are we seeing indications, early indications of that?
No question about it, Thomas. If you look at the southern hemisphere, the flu numbers were way down, and that's because of the pandemic. People wearing masks, socially distancing, using good hands hygiene. All of those things have led to a significant reduction, a downtick, if you will, in the numbers. And so I'm very excited about that, and I think we will see that this fall.
I want to talk about this new study that says children actually produce weaker coronavirus antibodies compared to adults. Your thoughts? What do we know?
Well, very interesting information. Children tend to have less of an immune response. Now, that has a couple of ramifications. One, that's probably why they don't get as sick. And secondly, it makes it a little dicey in terms of checking people to see, especially kids, whether they've had it or not. If you don't produce antibodies, then it's going to be a little harder to make the diagnosis. But the bottom line is that it's good. It's good that kids don't get as sick as adults. It's a good thing.
But I know other studies have suggested that an overly strong immune response is more likely to lead to a severe complication from COVID-19, even death. Why is that the case?
Well, we've talked since the beginning about the fact that you get the initial viral infection, and then your body's immune response kicks in, and you get this cytokine storm. Now, just like everything with COVID-19 and science in general, there's debate about it. How important is that response, that immune response? Bottom line is that it appears that things like dexamethasone, which is a steroid, and other agents which mitigate the immune response tend to help with this virus. So that's why we take seriously the immune response.
All right, Dr. Mike, our daily reminder on staying safe.
Stay safe by wearing a mask, staying socially distant, and following guidelines. This Thanksgiving, I think, is going to be a different Thanksgiving from any Thanksgiving that I've ever participated in. And the bottom line is we need to get through this so that we can move ahead. And next Thanksgiving will be much better.
Certainly will. We hope so. Dr. Mike Srigliano with Penn Medicine out of Philadelphia. Good to see you, Dr. Mike.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Thomas.
Taking a live look at the U.S. Capitol. In our nation's capital, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio just sat down to provide us some coronavirus and election updates. But we've been recording since the beginning, so we're going to listen in. It's only about 2 minutes behind, so this is still a live event happening, but I'm going to take you there now here on News Now from Fox. Rain Augustine will be with you for about the next 30 minutes, and then Mike Page is going to pick up at the top of the hour. Some of you, though, are going to see a commercial break.
Morning, everyone. Okay, let's start with the good news, because what a difference a few days makes. When we got together last, the election results were up in the air, long count expected, lots of questions, but this morning there are answers, and they are very good answers for New York City. We are so happy that I can now say the words, congratulations, President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. This is a great day for this country and for this city, because not only do we have leaders who are going to move us forward, and Joe Biden, I'm absolutely convinced, a leader who's going to get so much done to put this country back on its feet and heal this nation. That's who he is. That's the kind of person he is. And Kamala Harris is going to do so much by his side and has fundamentally changed this nation already by showing that leadership is for everyone. Everyone's talents will be honored and respected. This is an amazing turning point, but what it means for us here in New York City in particular is that we will have three things that we need desperately. We will now have clear national leadership in fighting the coronavirus with a clear message, a clear vision, a clear strategy that we can believe in. That's one. Two, a vaccine we can trust. That's going to be crucial. A vaccine that when it is finally announced and distributed, people will believe it is the real thing and be ready to take it. And three, of course, that stimulus that will put us back on our feet. A stimulus big enough and focused enough to help New York City and New York State get moving. We're going to get all three of those things, I'm convinced, because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So that's extraordinary good news, and that's going to be a game changer. And the people of this city are feeling it. They're feeling a sense of a weight lifted, a sense of hope and possibility, and putting behind us what has been such a painful and divisive time for our nation, for our city. I don't know about you, but I feel a sense of calm, a sense of peace that I haven't felt in a long time, because we finally have a clear result to this election. So that's the good news, and that's going to do so much to help us. But unfortunately, we're also dealing with an immense challenge this morning, because we see the presence of the coronavirus in the city, and it's trying to reassert itself, and we have to do everything in our power. While we're waiting for that help from the federal government to finally come, we need to do everything in our power to stop the coronavirus from reasserting in New York City. We have to stop a second wave from happening here. It is getting dangerously close. I've been telling you for weeks that we had the ability to stop a second wave. And for weeks, actually, our numbers were higher than we wanted, but they had leveled off. Now, unfortunately, we're seeing a real growth in the positivity rate in this city, and that is dangerous. So we have one last chance to stop a second wave. It's as simple as this. This is my message to all New Yorkers today. We can stop a second wave if we act immediately, but we have one last chance, and everyone has to be a part of it. Just like you fought back the coronavirus after March and April brought the city back, made it one of the safest places in the country, we have to do that again, and we have to act urgently. Citywide positivity now, the positivity level above 2%. And it's been increasing. That is a problem. We have gone well past the threshold for the number of cases we set. The case numbers continue to increase. That is a problem. We're seeing household transmission. We're seeing community spread. We're seeing things we have not seen in a long time, and we have to stop them. So we're going to be talking to you about what we're doing everywhere in the city, but there are still parts of the city that are particularly of concern. There are still some areas of the city that need special attention, special effort, and we're going to talk about that in terms of the neighborhoods and the zip codes. We're coming back now with the zip code information that's going to allow us to focus on where we need to do the most work, the most testing, the most outreach, the most mass distribution. And it's important for everyone to understand it's a problem everywhere, but it's a particular problem in certain neighborhoods. So to give us that information clearly so every single New Yorker can participate, our Department of Health is now going to resume putting up data by zip code. You'll be able to see the positivity levels by zip code, the trends that are happening, the test results, transmission rates, the things that really will tell you exactly what is going on. You can go to nyc.gov/health/coronavirus. The whole idea here is to take this information, turn it into power. Take this information and fight back with it. Use it to tell us what we need to do. And our health commissioner is going to address this, but one more thing I'm going to highlight, he's going to make this point. I need everyone to listen loud and clear. He is New York City's doctor. Listen to the point he's going to make, that one of the most crucial things that will happen in the next 2 months, of course, is the holidays. And the holidays we associate with travel, and the holidays we associate with big indoor gatherings, big meals together. That, unfortunately, this year can't be the case, because if you look at the numbers that we're going to go over now, you're going to see loud and clear we're in a dangerous situation, and we have to change our habits. We cannot take the risk of going back to larger shutdowns of our city, our economy, more and more restrictions. We cannot take that risk. We have to change what we do in light of this situation. So here to give you an update and give you the guidance you need to help us stop the second wave, the city's doctor, our health commissioner, Dr. Dave Choksi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From the beginning, science and data have been the lifeblood of our response. The numbers help us decide how we intensify outreach and where we direct our resources. We also know that an informed and watchful city is one of our best defenses against COVID-19, which is why we're pleased to announce we've updated our website to offer even more timely information to New Yorkers. The new page on our website includes a new summary of the latest data, 7-day average of percent positivity by zip code, more refined age breakdowns, and testing turnaround times. The site will be live today, and we invite all New Yorkers to see what is happening in their communities. Something that will be apparent to anyone reviewing the data is that numbers are rising steadily in neighborhoods across the city. These numbers must serve as a warning to us, as the mayor has said. The virus starts local, but as we're seeing around the country and around the world, it doesn't stay local unless each of us takes the action that we need to protect ourselves as well as others. Now, the timing of this increase should give us pause, because it comes at a moment that I want to acknowledge is precious to so many of us. It's precious and yet laden with risk this year, the holidays. I understand that after all we've been through, there is a need to find comfort through celebrating with family and community. But I want to be clear, the holidays this year cannot look like years past. Many of the things that make the holidays so special also carry the most risk. We know the virus spreads through social gatherings, even small get-togethers. And the cooler weather means drier air. Conditions that we know for most respiratory viruses, like the coronavirus, more contagious. That's why today we're posting our holiday guidance about safe celebrations that will protect the health of those who are most dear to you. As the mayor said, please, if you don't absolutely have to, don't travel. This will help protect not just your loved ones, but also other New Yorkers. Don't host a party and avoid gathering in groups. Mistletoe may be off limits this year, but holiday cheer is not. You can enjoy virtual gatherings, seasonal traditions, whether it's a football game or admiring holiday decorations from a distance, or eating some of your favorite holiday foods. Finally, the core 4 and testing remain the cornerstones of keeping our city safe during the holidays, but also every day. Mask up. From a second wave of hospitalizations and avoidable suffering. And as you'll see on our updated website, about 2/3 of all test results are returned within 48 hours, helping us interrupt the spread of COVID-19. If you have symptoms, test positive, or are in quarantine, you should wear a mask while you're in your own home. This helps prevent spread to family members as well as roommates. Otherwise, mask up anytime you are outside your home, indoors or out. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Dr. Choksi. 6 feet and a mask. That says so much, that simple phrase, and that makes all the difference. Now, look, we've got a lot of work to do. We've got to do it everywhere. But let's also remember, we see particular places where we have challenges. For weeks, it was parts of Brooklyn and Queens. Those areas, thank God, have gotten a lot better. There's still work to do, but they've gotten a lot better. But as we talked about at the end of last week, now we're having some challenges in Staten Island. So we're going to focus a lot of resources there to protect the people of Staten Island and to stop this second wave. We're going to see a day of action tomorrow in Staten Island. And this day of action means a lot of outreach, a lot of mass distribution, a lot of testing. There'll be an outreach effort at the ferry terminal and other locations around the island. And of course, it's Get Tested Tuesdays. We're going to encourage the maximum number of Staten Islanders to get tested. Here to talk to you about this effort, the head of our Test and Trace Corps, Dr. Ted Long.
Thank you, sir. The purpose of our day of action is to test as many people as possible. Testing is our line of sight into the fight against the coronavirus, and every single New Yorker, every single Staten Islander that comes out and gets tested on Tuesday, you have strengthened our ability to win that fight. Now, what we're going to be doing in Staten Island on Tuesday is we're going to have 75 volunteers and staff roving around the island. They'll be at the ferry, they'll be at Staten Island Mall, they'll be at Bricktown Center at Charleston, and they'll be at Forest Plaza. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to get tested. Again, come to any of our sites for a fast, easy, and of course, free test. You will help us to win this fight. We'll see you on Tuesday.
Thank you so much, Dr. Long. So, everybody, look, the basics make such an impact. So again, Get Tested Tuesday. This is, now that we're giving you this warning, the second wave is out there, we got to beat it back. I want to emphasize to anyone who's never been tested, get tested this week. If you haven't been tested in a long time, get tested this week. This is the time. We need to know better what's happening neighborhood by neighborhood so we can stop this second wave. So if you want to know what you can do, go out there and get tested. All right, now, again, want to remind people with the holidays coming, the best solution is not to travel. If you can possibly avoid travel, you should. And I know it's painful. We miss loved ones that we haven't seen in a long time. I'm feeling it. I know what it feels like. I wish I could go see my loved ones. This is going to be the first holiday season for my family that I can remember my entire life where I won't see some of the people I'm closest to in this world. But that's to keep everyone safe. And so if you don't need to travel, if you can avoid travel, that comes first. That's the best option. But if you must travel, New York State has now issued new guidelines. And if you travel, you will have to quarantine for 14 days, and we mean it. We're going to be very strict about that, unless you follow the state guidelines and you get tested before your trip and then a few days after you return. So there is an opportunity to avoid the 14-day quarantine if you test before traveling back to New York City and after returning to New York City. But if you don't follow those specific guidelines, you have to quarantine for 14 days. We have to take it seriously. We have to enforce it. We will enforce it because this is how we use every tool in our power to stop a second wave from hitting us here. Okay, now let's talk about the daily indicators, and it will be quite clear the challenge we face. So, 3 indicators. The one that thankfully maintains or at a certain level that we are handling well is number 1, daily number of people admitted to New York City hospitals for suspected COVID-19. That threshold is 200 patients. Today's report, 71, with a confirmed positivity level of 29.58%. So, look, right now, that number remains at a fairly low level. But note that that positivity level for COVID continues to rise. And obviously, with the number of cases growing, we are very concerned that there'll be more and more people going to the hospital. It's a level we can manage right now. Well, I'm thinking about the human reality. Anyone who goes into the hospital is dealing with a serious problem. We can't see that continue to rise. But right now, thank God, still at a lower level. But here's where the news gets much worse. Number 2, the new reported cases on a 7-day average, that threshold of 550 cases for a long time, that seemed like a threshold we would never surpass. We then did surpass it in the last week or so, but now much higher, 779 cases. That right there shows you the magnitude of the problem. Some of that's explained by more and more testing, and more testing is good, but some of that is explained by the fact that the positivity levels are going up, and that is a problem. And that's what you'll see in number 3, percentage of people testing citywide positive for COVID-19, threshold 5%, today's report 2.36%, very worrisome. 7-day rolling average, 2.21%, highest we've seen in a long time. We can fight these back. There's still time to fight them back, but those are numbers that should have us all alarmed and ready to act with everything we got. Okay, we'll do a few words now in Spanish. Estamos en una nueva fase de la pandemia en nuestra ciudad y debemos trabajar muy duro para evitar una segunda ola. Esta vez tenemos ventaja porque sabemos cómo protegernos, usando máscaras, creando distancia social y tomando la prueba. Juntos debemos luchar más fuerte que nunca para mantener nuestra ciudad saludable en este otoño y en el invierno. With that, I turn to our colleagues in the media. Please let me know the name and outlet of each journalist.
Hi all, we'll now begin our Q&A. With us today is Dr. Dave Chakti, City's Health Commissioner, Senior Advisor Dr. Jay Varma, and Executive Director of the Test and Trace Corps, Dr. Ted Long. With that, we'll go to Andrew from WNBC.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, and everyone on the call. With regard to these higher numbers, has your Test and Trace Corps learned anything about how these cases are spreading? Seems like all these months into Test and Trace, we don't get much in terms of specifics. Are they small family gatherings where people are inviting a couple of friends over indoors and that's where the spread is taking place? Do you have any evidence of any outdoor spread anywhere in New York City?
Andrew, first I'll start and then let the doctors weigh in. I understand your question entirely. We're all, we all would in a sense prefer to know a very specific source of the problem, but that's not what we're seeing here. It's not like there's a specific building, specific gathering. What we've seen overall is that where really good precautions are taken, we don't have a problem. Our school system continues to be a great example of that. I think what we're seeing is something much more generalized. Test and Trace has been out there working intensely, and what we're seeing, unfortunately, is a broader community spread, and clearly some of it related to what's happening around the country and travel, but something broader than that as well. That's why the way to fight is for everyone to double down on the things that do work. Dr. Chokshi, you want to add?
Thank you, sir. Yes, the only thing that I would add is that we do have information, not just from the tracing efforts from Test and Trace here in New York City, but we now also have a robust evidence base, with respect to the science about how the coronavirus has spread across the entire world. What we know from that evidence base, from the science, is that it happens anytime that people gather, but particularly when they gather without masks and indoors. And so that's true of social gatherings, as I mentioned. It's true anytime people are congregating for other reasons, whether related to work or more socially. And it's true, particularly during the cooler months, because the air is drier and because people are more likely to gather indoors. So even when we don't have those specifics, we do know the specific things that people can do to avoid the spread.
And Andrew, that combination, gathering indoors without masks, plus cold weather, which makes people want to be more indoors, obviously, That combination is a real problem. That's why we're going to keep emphasizing wearing the mask all the time and avoiding large gatherings, particularly indoors. That is such a crucial point. Dr. Long, you want to add?
Yeah. So I appreciate that question. What you're going for here too is have we seen the same type of super spreading events, as the mayor said, localized to a pinpoint location that have plagued other cities, other countries? Because New Yorkers have taken the precautions that they have, we've had one of the best control rates in the country, and we have not seen anywhere close to the same degree of that type of spreading event in New York City. To be concrete for you, about 10% of our cases that we're seeing here, we track back to travel. 5 to 10% we track back to specific gatherings or events. We have detailed information on every single case that we get that we're able to talk to able to interview, and we act on that information to know where we need to deploy our resources, where we need to do messaging, where we need to do specific testing outreach in terms of different workplaces. So we act on that every day, and I appreciate your question.
Go ahead, Andrew.
So my next question has to do with the city's plans for upcoming holiday events. Are you prepared, Mayor, to take more aggressive actions, such as not allowing the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree, or making sure that any Thanksgiving-related gatherings do not take place? What new steps will you announce?
We're going to look at all that, Andrew. I think, again, the first concern needs to be making sure we do not have large indoor gatherings and that we get people wearing masks all the time. There really are not many major outdoor events at this point, but we'll look again to see what's out there and if any additional precautions are needed. But again, the key problem here is indoors and not wearing masks. Let's really emphasize that. If people avoid indoor gatherings and wear a mask, that's going to be crucial to turning this around. Go ahead.
Next is Sean from the Daily News.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I mean, following up on Andrew's questions, I'm wondering if you can maybe outline some possible scenarios in the weeks ahead. I mean, in previous weeks, when you talked about a second wave, you warned of more severe restrictions coming back. Certainly in the red and orange zones, there was a crackdown on parts of the reopening. Can you say what you have in mind in terms of scaling back the reopening if the second wave does come? And is there a timeline here? Is it like we'll know in a week, a month, anything like that?
Sean, very good common sense questions, and I appreciate any question. This kind of thing an everyday New Yorker would ask. And the first thing I want to say is let's be careful about trying to predict exact timelines, because in a sense that takes away the role of the people, meaning it is not something that happens to us and we have no impact on. That's the whole story of the difference between March and April, when this horrible virus appeared in the city out of nowhere, versus the way people were able to fight it back through their own actions, their own behavior, and we need them to do that again. So the more that people wear masks, practice social distancing, all those basics, the more we're able to fight back that second wave. So I can't give you a timeline. It will actually depend on how people respond to your reporting and everything else we put out there. If they take decisive action, it can make a huge difference. But it is important, I think, to lay out the danger in terms of new restrictions, because I think it will make it very visual, very real to people what we're up against. God forbid this continued and we had a full-blown second wave. It means a lot more restrictions. It means, unfortunately, could mean even having to shut down parts of our economy again, which would be horrible for this city, horrible for the livelihoods of people. It could mean having to shut down schools. There are obvious, real dangers here, and we don't want to see that happen. So that's why I'm telling people there's one last chance to stop that, and we need everyone to participate. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I guess switching gears to the incoming Biden administration, can you say whether you've reached out to that administration yet, and just any thoughts on what your strategy will be for getting, the funding that you've been calling for months and months from Washington? Yeah,
I'm reaching out later today to folks in the incoming administration, start those conversations. Look, tremendously hopeful about the kind of stimulus that a Biden administration would do, but even the fact that there will be a Biden administration is now really creating energy in Washington for stimulus even quicker. And if it's a good one, if it's a fair one that really focuses on what people need, but also what cities and states need to get back on their feet, that could be a blessing for sure. But we'll be talking with the Biden team, emphasizing those three things I talked about at the beginning. We need clear national leadership to fight back the coronavirus, a single clear message about where we need to go as a country and what people need to do. We need a pathway to a vaccine we can believe in and that people will want to take, which is crucial. And of course, that stimulus. That's what I'll be focused on.
Next is Jillian from WBAI.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, how are you doing?
Good, Jillian. How you been?
I'm well enough that I can start breathing again as of Saturday.
Excellent.
So, good.
Welcome back.
Yeah. So, about the Special Flushing Waterfront District, I'm sure you're aware that there's an Article 78 lawsuit already pending. No EIS was conducted or even required for the planned influx of almost 2,000 new units, which many opponents consider DCP doing an end run around the developer, basically. There are estimates that 1,000 new sewer line connections will be needed, and only 3% of apartments fall into affordable housing categories. The AMI requirement for these new apartments it's 80% of the citywide AMI, but the Flushing AMI is less than half that. DCP's own data reports 66% of current residents are already rent burdened. Struggling small businesses call the project slap in the face, especially given the pandemic and because of the large retail component. Others call it a massive giveaway to a developer, which you have repeatedly said was a thing of the past.
Okay, Jillian, come on, get me to a question.
This particular development is a good idea.
Jillian, look, I need to look at the latest on that. Honestly, we've been focused on a lot of other things. I appreciate the concerns you're raising because we obviously want to have maximum affordable housing, protections for small businesses. These are all things I fundamentally believe in. Let me look at the latest on that, and I can give you a more coherent answer because I just haven't looked at that in a while. Go ahead.
Thanks, and that's understandable. I promise us a quicker question. Of the 13 proposed towers, only 2 don't violate FAA height restrictions imposed because of the proximity to LaGuardia Airport. The project is slated to be built in coastal flood and hurricane evacuation high-risk zones. And my understanding is whatever the PR narrative may be, the developer has not committed to cleaning up Flushing Creek despite the expected pollution caused by the new sewers and generated by all the new residents. So how does the city plan to deal with these concerns, which I'm sure you don't know right now, but I'm asking anyway.
No, I am taking my notes on all of it. I appreciate all the questions. They're very fair questions. We're going to come back with answers on it, all of it. I obviously want to really particularly focus on those height restrictions. That's a very real issue, and we have to have a clear approach there. So give me a day or two, and we will have an answer for you. I appreciate the question.
Next is Jeff from the New York Times.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering, we reported today that city health officials felt that some of the infections were coming from clusters linked to workplaces such as construction sites and offices. And I'm wondering if you agree with that, and what does that mean about the city's effort to restart the economy, get people back to work? Is there enough focus being placed on the clusters that are being found at offices and construction sites and things of that nature?
Yeah, again, appreciate the question, Jeff. I think what the approach the city is taking is really could be described as abundance of caution, looking at some areas where we want to make sure there's focused testing and follow-up. Again, as you heard from Dr. Long, unlike a lot of places, our problem has not been specific sites really driving a lot of our challenge. But we want to be real careful, and that's what I think describes the essence of the city strategy. Dr. Chokshi, you want to add?
Yes, sir. Just to add briefly to that, that's exactly right. We have to look at all places where there is a greater risk. But again, the actions are the same, whether you're in a workplace, whether you're at a social gathering. There are things that we know that can reduce the risk, particularly wearing your mask and keeping your distance. We'll keep looking at this data, not just on a week-to-week basis, but on a day-to-day basis. And any place that we do see a concentration of cases, whether it's because it's happening at a zip code or because it's happening in a particular setting, that informs how we think about fighting the coronavirus going forward.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I guess just a follow-up, Mr. Mayor, is, if we don't know where the infections are coming from and we're having trouble analyzing them, isn't it a little too late? I mean, should you, at this point, already be imposing some restrictions on non-essential businesses because the rates have continually been rising for the last few weeks?
Jeff, a very fair question, and something we've talked about a lot internally the last few days. I think it's fair to say, after a lot of discussion, first of all, a discussion also with the state of New York that has to make a lot of the ultimate decisions here. But look, the way I've asked it to the health team is, where are we this minute in terms of our ability to move forward as a city? What kind of trajectory on? What can we do about it? Well, where we are right this minute is more cases than we want for sure. But at the same time, Jeff, the city is clearly functioning across the board. We have gotten a lot of more activity back, a lot more jobs back. We're hovering now about around 4 million jobs in New York City, so we've had a real major comeback in terms of employment, much more to be done. Obviously, schools open, a lot of things are happening that people need. And if we stayed right where we were now, we could sustain ourselves. So then the question is, where are we going? We fear, of course, that we're seeing this kind of increase. But the question I always ask the health team is, can it be turned around with the right effort by the people? And the government obviously leading the way. And the answer is yes. But we have a brief window. We have to make that turnaround quickly. So I think the simple answer is no, it's not yet time for those broader restrictions. I pray it will never be that time. But if we don't act very quickly, then those restrictions could become a reality.
Next, we have Aaron from Politico.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wondering, you have specifically said in the past that indoor dining should close when we're over 2% on the 7-day average, which we now are. I know it's not your final decision, but is that going to happen? Are you going to try to make that happen?
What I said is at 2% it should be reevaluated, and I think it should be reevaluated now. Again, the goal is to stop this trend in terms of higher infection rates and push it back down. But certainly we're at a point where I think it makes sense to take another look given what's happening. Go ahead, Aaron.
Okay. And then, so I believe it was Dr. Long said earlier that 5% of cases are being tracked to a specific gathering or event. So I know you only have that information for a minority of cases, but can we get some examples of what are these gatherings and events that cases are being tracked to?
Yeah, and I'll start as the layman here and say that, remember, until very recently, thank God, we had a very low number of daily cases. So what we've seen over the months is sometimes that's just a family gathering even, 10 people get together, 15 people get together, and that can actually spread the disease among family. And we have to understand that this is the cumulative effect. When you have a city of 8 million people, a lot of very small gatherings can be the problem. We are always watching to see if any of the bigger ones, particularly the indoor ones, have sparked more of a problem. But let me have Dr. Choksi and Dr. Long speak to that.
The way the mayor described it is right. One of the things that we can say is that when we do the contact tracing that Dr. Long will speak about in more detail, we can understand the patterns of transmission. So I can give you a concrete example. Let's say there is a small social gathering, one of the things that we are discouraging actively right now. But let's say there was that small social gathering where someone was infected with the virus but didn't know it. They developed symptoms a couple of days later, and they got tested, and then at that point understood that they were infected with the virus. That original gathering, those people who were there would have gone into other locations, and because of that exposure, had spread the virus to some others. This is something that we have seen happen in a way that actually leads to an increase in cases in a geographic area, just linked back to that sequence of gatherings over time. So that's why it's important to follow this guidance, and particularly to focus on gatherings indoors and mask use.
All the important points have been covered. I'll just emphasize that when we do contact tracing, we don't just look for a single close contact. We look for the setting or the type of place where you were likely to have received the infection. That's why we look at things like workplaces, and we have granular detail on the type of workplaces. Anytime there's more than two or more cases in a specific type of setting or workplace, we document that, we look at that, and we intervene based on that. With your question about gatherings and events, the mayor's example is actually right on. We do detect even small gatherings. We're able to clarify with our contact tracing interviews what happened, who was there, and then we could reach out to other people, maybe other cases that we link together, and then maybe additional contacts beyond that. So our contact tracing scheme really enables us to look at the likely source of infection and take concrete action ranging from bringing testing to different types of settings to understanding what we need to change in our messaging, like the fact that with the indoor transmission we're seeing now, it is more important than ever to wear a mask indoors. And we know that clearly from our data here. So that's the key message we see from all of our data in totality.
Thank you.
Next is Nolan from the New York Post.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
How you doing, Nolan?
I'm well, Mr. Mayor. You said at the top, or re-emphasized at the top, the importance of everyone wearing a mask and everyone keeping 6 feet apart as ways to stop or slow and sort of the rate of infection across the city. On Saturday, we saw a lot of celebrations. The celebrations included a lot of people in masks, but very few people keeping 6 feet apart. Are you guys worried that all the celebrations Saturday and Sunday could fuel this increase in cases?
We're always looking at that in any other situation like it, Nolan. I would say overwhelmingly, I had this conversation with the doctors this morning, the huge difference between outdoors with a mask versus indoors without a mask. This is really what we're seeing decisively. Those outdoor gatherings, always something to keep an eye on, but if people have a mask on and they're outdoors, we haven't seen too much ill come of that. Increasingly, the concern is more and more people indoors, fewer and fewer people indoors wearing, or not fewer and fewer, but not enough, let's say, wearing a mask. That's overwhelmingly where our concern is.
And the appearances of a double standard. This concern's been raised a lot over the summertime. It was raised again by lawmakers in southern Brooklyn, where the enforcement actions continued against businesses, whereas there didn't seem to be much in the way of social distancing enforcement for the outdoor gatherings after the election. What do you say to them?
Again, we are seeing a profound difference when people are indoors. We're seeing a profound difference when people don't wear a mask. I think everyone needs to be careful all the time, and particularly, Nolan, if these numbers we're reporting today continue to grow, then people are going to have to get used to more and more restrictions and going back to some of the ways we had to live in the spring. But I want to emphasize the biggest concern right now, whether it's in a store or a business or a home, is when people are indoors. And the biggest concern particularly is when people don't have a mask on. We did not know in the beginning, back in March, April, the scientific community didn't know what incredibly crucial role masks would play. Now we do. So that's where we're going to win or lose this game. If we are really focused on people keeping those masks on and particularly being careful indoors.
We have time for two more. First is Fred from WNYC.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Mayor. I know you addressed this partially, but in terms of what sort of triggers we might see, we can't lay out a timeline, but You said 2% would trigger reconsideration. We've blown well past the 550 rolling average. So are we setting new trigger levels, or are we doing away completely with trigger thresholds at a city level and focusing them more exclusively on the kind of microcluster neighborhood level? Can you talk about that schedule?
Yeah, Fred, thank you for the question. I actually answered this last week. I think it was on Thursday, but I'm happy to do it again. The three indicators really tell us so much. We have one where, unfortunately, in the last couple of weeks, we've gone by it a lot. That's the cases. We have another with hospitalizations that actually have remained, again, reasonably low, but still worrisome. Well below the 200, positivity rate well below where it was in the spring among those patients, but still worrisome. And then we have the citywide positivity rate, which really has moved in the wrong direction the last few days. I said last week that 3% is obviously a key indicator. That's what we've put forward as the indicator to watch in terms of our school system. So what I would say will unfortunately indicate if we're in a full-blown second wave would be if those case numbers remain high, if the positivity level goes above 3% on a sustained basis, and if the number of hospitalization goes up around or beyond that 200 patient a day threshold. That would clearly define to me that we are in a second wave. Go ahead.
Can we just flesh out a little more some of the enforcement efforts? For instance, you said you're going to get really serious about holiday enforcement. It's my understanding from people, contact tracers I've spoken, that the travel they're so overwhelmed with local cases making calls. They've more or less ceased doing the monitoring incoming travelers, which they had been doing, and also on the restaurant enforcement, which is different group perhaps because the restaurant inspectors are come from a different place. But now that there are more and more of these outdoor, semi-indoor, outdoor sidewalk places, I wonder if you could talk to how we are in terms of personnel and enforcing those. So two different categories.
Yeah, Fred, very important. So on restaurants, obviously, health department leads the way. That's going to be a continued focus. But I think your first point is a particularly pertinent one, the travel and quarantine. You're right, the sheriff's office played a really big role in the travel enforcement. They've had to do some other very important work in the last few weeks, but we're going to be shifting more of their energy back onto the travel enforcement for sure. And quarantine enforcement is going to greatly intensify. This is something we've been talking to the state about as well. With the holiday travel, again, we're praying people will really limit it this year or just not travel at all. But we're going to have much more vigorous enforcement in terms of travel and quarantine and clear consequences for folks who break quarantine. So that's something that between Sheriff's Office, Test and Trace, Health Department, we're going to be putting a lot of resources into that. And I think the message right now is people need to understand that quarantine has to be taken seriously. The state has given people a way to avoid it if they follow very specific rules. But otherwise, we're going to hold people to the quarantine standard, and there'll be real penalties if they do not live up to that standard.
For our last question, we'll go to Yoav from the city.
Hi, everyone. You mentioned there's going to be a day of action on Staten Island tomorrow because of the increased positivity rates. I'm seeing about 8 zip codes there that are above 3%. If you look at the Bronx, there's 7 zip codes that are above 3%. What are you guys doing for the Bronx as far as new actions?
Yeah, very fair. Let's give it quickly an overview, and then my colleagues can speak to some of the specifics. Yoav, a couple of things. One, we had Brooklyn and Queens. Really high numbers, much higher than what you're seeing on the chart today by zip code. When we originally raised the concern, we saw even higher numbers than that. Really good news story that with a lot of work, a lot of community participation, a lot of help by community leaders, organizations, a lot of testing, that number has gone down in the vast majority of Brooklyn, Queens neighborhoods that were affected. We're seeing still a few problems in Brooklyn, Queens, but nowhere near what we were seeing before. That's good. We're not seeing a problem in Manhattan. That's good. We are seeing a bigger problem now in Staten Island. It has been growing. We're going to put a lot of resources into addressing that. And then in the Bronx, we see some zip codes, but I want to emphasize we differentiate a zip code, Yoav, that went up to above 3% one day, but then goes down the next day. That's different than if you see a clear pattern over multiple days. So one of the things we're going to be very careful about is, are we seeing a pattern? Are we seeing uneven results? Are we seeing enough testing data to be persuasive that we have a clear trend line? It's going to be clear on the Department of Health data when there's a sufficient amount of testing versus when there isn't. And I believe, Dr. Choksi, you said the number is 260 tests per 100,000 residents in a zip code is the way we are weighing that. So, Dr. Choksi, with that preface, why don't you start, and then Dr. Long, on the ways we're going to go out to those neighborhoods in Staten Island first and foremost, and now parts of the Bronx as well, to really try and turn the tide.
Thank you, sir. And you covered a lot of the high points, but what I would say is that this is part and parcel of us using our data to drive action. Ultimately, the data is our window into what's happening. But based on the data, we have to both motivate our fellow New Yorkers to take action, as well as provide resources at a local level to help people do the right thing with respect to interrupting the spread of the virus. So when we look at it, one very important point that the mayor said is that we have to look at it with respect to patterns, understanding sustained increases over time, which are more worrisome than fluctuations in data. And that is something that we have seen in Staten Island over the last few days, which has helped motivate the day of action. Beyond that, we also look at not just percent positivity, but numbers of cases and understanding how the case rates are changing over time as well. We combine that with data on hospitalizations to have the whole panoply of indicators that helps us figure out where we need to go and how intensive our response needs to be.
Dr. Long, you want to add?
I very much appreciate that question. One of the big points I want to drive home is the same thing that Dr. Choksi just said. We're guided by the data in terms of defining our actions. In Staten Island, we're going out, getting people to get tested. Tomorrow we have 10 sites that are new in Staten Island, including a large new rapid testing site opening at the ferry on Thursday. Looking back at what we've done so far, in places like Sunset Parks, places like Soundview, when we brought in that level of testing, we were able to drive down the virus by 2/3. Same thing happened in the clusters in Brooklyn and Queens. We brought in 32 new sites into the clusters, 18 of those in the red zones alone. Queens has seen substantial improvement, so has Brooklyn. So we, ahead of now, are already doing this in the Bronx. And you can see with the data that we're going to be putting out later today exactly how we're guided in terms of what we do. In the Bronx, we have 25 new testing sites, including a large, massive one at Edward L. Grant, and we're opening up more massive testing sites in the Bronx too, guided by the data that you're going to see, and that's one of the mainstays of how we're going to drive down the virus, is by bringing testing to people.
Go ahead, Yoav.
Thanks for that. On the schools issue, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think there's about 45 public schools I think they're in red zones that the governor said on Friday could be opened. And you said you were going to take a look at it. What's the plan for those schools? Are you going to try to reopen them?
Yeah, there's, first of all, just updating you on the numbers. It was 45 before the state changed the red zone map. So the red zone map has now greatly decreased. That's a really good thing. As you saw, the state's most recent action late last week, a number of red zone areas in Brooklyn were taken out of red, went into yellow. A bunch of yellow zone areas in Brooklyn and Queens went out of yellow zone, went to green, all good. So now in the much smaller red zone area of Brooklyn, which is just a handful of zip codes, there are 22 schools, 22 public schools in the remaining red zone areas. Again, we're going to stand back, continue to hope that the progress in the red zones takes those areas out of the red zone altogether, at which point we'll reopen those schools. In the areas that have gone from red to yellow, those schools will open on Thursday. Wednesday is a holiday, obviously, for Veterans Day. Those schools will open on Thursday, the ones that are now in yellow zones in Brooklyn that had previously been in red zones. So that's about, again, 20 plus schools will be opening on Thursday. Okay, everyone, look, as we conclude today, I want to go back to something that Dr. Choksi said. Really, really simple thought. I love nothing more than when a few words can remind us what we need to do, how we have to keep everyone safe. 6 feet and a mask. 5 simple words, right? 6 feet and a mask. That's what's going to make the difference here. So we're up against a real challenge. Every one of us we're showing you the numbers neighborhood by neighborhood, we're showing neighborhood by neighborhood, we're showing you city numbers, we're showing you the data, we're showing you the science, and we're telling you there is a danger of a second wave hitting New York City, and we have to act immediately to turn this around. Everyone can be a part of it. Every single New Yorker can be a part of it. And if you are fearful right now, if you're worried, I don't blame you at all. But I do remind you, you did this before. You overcame something horrendous, horrible, overwhelming before in March and April. Remember what we went through, but you overcame that. You did that because you put on those masks, you practiced the distancing, you made the changes, and you fought back the disease. We did it before. We need to do it again right now. Thank you, everyone.
And that was the update there in New York City. I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks to our Florida team for kicking off our coverage today on News Now from Fox as we continue to roll on here, giving you the updates and all the live feeds that are happening across the board. And we are about, if everything's on schedule right now, about 10 minutes away from Joe Biden. He will be talking about how he will combat COVID-19 when he gets in office, pending any legal challenges there by President Trump that continues to go into the court system right now. Live look at the White House right here as you're taking a look here as President Trump doubling down and tripling down on these legal challenges that he is going to be mounting in several states, including Nevada, Pennsylvania, and others. We'll have details for you in just a little bit, but I want to get to another story here of the day. Really, this one was a big one. Pfizer saying that they have a COVID-19 vaccine, and they hope to produce up to 50 million doses of its vaccine in 2020 and up to 1.3 billion in 2021. That was the latest from Pfizer there. And let me just get you a better update here in just 1 second as I update this lower third here for you. There you go. So this is the latest on what to know. Pfizer and its German partner BioNTech disclosed a game changer in the fight against COVID-19. The duo's vaccine known as BNT162b2 proved to be 90% effective after being tested on nearly 44,000 participants in its phase 3 study. This is a significant milestone in the fight against a virus that has been infected more than 50 million people around the globe, resulting in over 1.2 million deaths. Fox Business takes a look at the key data points investors and consumers should know, as well as reactions from business and political leaders. Pfizer's CEO updates on the progress, saying today is a great day for science and humanity. The first set of results from our phase 3 COVID-19 vaccine trial provides the initial evidence of our vaccine's ability to prevent COVID-19. That is from the Pfizer CEO and chairman, Dr. Albert Bourla, in a statement saying we are reaching this critical milestone in our vaccine development program at a time when the world needs it most, with infection rates setting new records, hospitals nearing overcapacity, and economies struggling to reopen. With today's news, we are a significant step closer to providing people around the world that with a much needed breakthrough to help bring an end to this global health crisis. Both President Trump and President-elect Biden commented on the news, signifying the achievement. President Trump saying stock market up big, vaccine coming soon, report 90% effective, such great news. And then Biden saying last night, my health advisors were informed of this excellent news. Biden said in a statement, I congratulate the brilliant women and men who helped produce this breakthrough and to give us such cause for hope. America is still losing over 1,000 people a day from COVID-19, and that number is rising and will continue to get worse unless we make progress on masking and other immediate actions, he added. That is the reality for now and for the next few months. Today's announcement promises the chance to change that next year, but the tasks before us now remain the same. Here's some fast facts regarding this vaccine being produced there by Pfizer. The cost, $39 in July. Pfizer said it would charge the U.S. $19.50 per dose. The vaccine requires 2 doses 3 weeks apart. Fox Business previously reported. The number of doses, Pfizer has previously said that it hopes to produce as many as 50 million doses by the end of this year, assuming approval from the FDA, and as many as 1.3 billion in 2021. At 2 doses per vaccination, that translated to 25 million people receiving a vaccination. Potential revenue to Pfizer goes at least $2 billion. Pfizer agreed to provide the U.S. via Operation Warp Speed up to 100 million doses for $1.95 billion. Fox News reported back in July. The agreement added that the U.S. has the options to buy an additional 500 million doses. So we'll keep an eye on that. As we have been mentioning, President Trump talked about that on Twitter today, and then we are expecting to get another statement, a live briefing there from Joe Biden in just a little bit. We will keep you updated when that does happen. You're watching News Now from Fox as we bring you the live feeds from across the country as they're happening. We're going out to Washington, D.C., talking about a live COVID-19 update there.
Because there's been some attention to this in the press. There might be interest in the bill Minor Consent for Vaccinations Amendment Act, which is up for final reading tomorrow, and I do expect that that will be approved. That's a bill that permits underage kids, I believe it's over the age of 11, to be vaccinated, but they have to go through, without their parents' consent, but they have to go through a process that includes a physician's approval. So it's not just simply a kid can just walk in and get vaccinated. There was some attention to that at first reading, and I expect that the final reading tomorrow will be approved. And then some of the other emergency bills, there aren't that many. I think there's 6. I don't think any of them are controversial. I'd already mentioned racial equity achieves results is on the agenda as an emergency bill, so it becomes effective right away. There's a bill that will enable improvements to go forward with regard to the DuPont Underground. That's funding that we put in the budget that clarifies that the DEMPED can go through the bid with infrastructure improvements where we've budgeted for them. And there's an emergency bill that will approve a contract that the Events DC has submitted to the council that will enable the $9 million that the council budgeted for excluded workers, undocumented and excluded workers, to get out the door. So that's not controversial. It's sort of like anti-climatic, but that it's important, and that's on the agenda tomorrow, as well as a bill to enact on an emergency basis what we've approved on a permanent basis, but takes longer to become law, regarding a preference that will enable Berea Public Charter School to continue with its parent-child dual enrollment preference as a model for education. Those are the highlights with tomorrow's agenda. I'm happy to take questions if there are any on whatever I mentioned or anything else regarding tomorrow's meeting.